operation could happen very soon. The president and other senior Biden administration officials have repeatedly voiced concern over an invasion of Rafah without a credible plan to ensure the safety of more than 1 million civilians in the city. President Biden is also having lunch here at the White House with Jordan's King Abdullah. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Anti-Jewish hatred demonstrations continued this past weekend, with some protesters interrupting graduation ceremonies. Speaking about the protests at her school, University of Southern California master's student Sarah Skornstein says the protesters have abused their free speech rights.
USC actually created a free speech zone for these students to be able to go to and politely ask them multiple times, as well as negotiated and have these different ways of approaching these protesters to go to this free speech zone as opposed to being on campus.
Days after one of his former top advisors testified against him, President Trump is back in a New York courtroom for his so-called criminal hush money trial. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett says Alvin Bragg's case is blowing up in his face, and Hope Hicks's testimony on Friday didn't help.
She undermined the prosecution's case when she told the jury that Trump's motive for suppressing salacious stories was to protect his wife, not the campaign. So that is the exact opposite of Alvin Bragg's central theory that Trump's intent was to help his election and therefore he violated campaign laws. No, he didn't. And it corroborates the findings of the feds who said, no crimes were committed here, no campaign finance violations. Bragg has charged Trump with falsifying private business records in 2017. Well, think about that. That's the year after the election. It's factually impossible to unlawfully influence an election after it occurred.
Abortion activists would consider it a prize to amend Florida's constitution for unlimited abortion. But as Charlie Butts reports, pro-lifers are going to put up a considerable fight.
Florida's Supreme Court, in letting the state's heartbeat law go into effect, also allowed Amendment 4 to go on to the November ballot. Florida Right to Life Executive Director Linda Bell tells AFN.
The Florida Supreme Court allowed it to go on the ballot in a 4-3 decision, and shamefully, all 4 men voted to put it on the ballot, even though they admitted that it was ambiguous and vague. One of the justices stated that we're not here to call balls and strikes, and my thought was, no, that's exactly your job. That's what you're there for.
The 3 female judges on the court ruled the amendment language is as clear as mud and is very deceptive. Terms not defined.
It says doesn't interfere with parental notification, but guess what it does do? It removes parental consent, and it doesn't define notification. So you literally have, if passed, an amendment that would allow abortion through all 9 months, including through birth, and children do not need the permission of their parents.
The one tool pro-lifers have in getting it defeated is to tell the truth about what it says and doesn't say, what it will do, but not do. Abortion fanatics are poised to pump millions of dollars into the state to claim victory in order to sustain the abortion industry's cash cow. I'm Charlie Butts.
Police in Pennsylvania say a man almost shot a pastor mid-sermon on Sunday.
Pennsylvania state troopers say a church deacon helped to save his pastor's life at the Jesus Dwelling Place Church in North Braddock near Pittsburgh Sunday, tackling a gunman who pointed a handgun and tried firing right in the middle of the sermon. It's on video, and 26-year-old Bernard Polite is seen aiming at Pastor Glenn Germany, standing near the altar. Deacon Clarence McAllister rushed in and subdued him right after the gun jammed. Police say Polite is mentally unwell, but is charged with crimes, including attempted murder. Eben Brown, Fox News.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Interested in seminary but don't think it will work in this season in life? Wesley Biblical Seminary offers flexible options that allow you to take classes live, no matter where you are. At WBS, we don't just educate people, we develop trusted leaders for faithful churches. It's time for you to respond to the calling God has on your life. Take classes from an institution that you can trust for a calling that will not go away. Learn more about your opportunities at wbs.edu. That's wbs.edu.
We inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
we also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to The Core here on American Family Radio Network. This is a new edition of the program. Glad to have you with us. Walker Wildmon here. Rick Green and myself, we host the show each week on American Family Radio. If you don't already have the American Family Radio app, you should download it on your smartphone, on your tablet device, or even on your Roku. We even have an Amazon Alexa skill built out there, so you can tell your Alexa to play American Family Radio. And so we've got the AFR app out there on multiple platforms. Also, we just did a rebrand and a launch of the AFA Stream app. So many of you have already created an AFA streaming account at streaming.afa.net. You've already done that the past 2 years, but we just rebranded it to simply AFA Stream. And we did that for a variety of reasons. It's shorter, easier to create a logo, and then we've got a brand new app icon out there as well. But you can download the AFA Stream app on Apple and Android devices today. Roku's coming out within the next week or so. So download the AFA Stream app, watch the show live on your mobile device. Psalm 111 is where we are this week. Praise the Lord. I will give thanks to the Lord with all my heart, in the company of the upright and in the assembly. Great are the works of the Lord. They are studied by all who delight in him. I could continue there, but just in verse 1 and 2, I want to point out that the writer here is talking about giving thanks to the Lord with all of his heart in the company of the upright in the assembly. So this is the importance of surrounding yourself with upright people. There's a litany of passages in the Scripture on this subject, but this is one of many that talks about surrounding yourself with upright people. So if you don't think it matters who you befriend, who you spend your time with, you're woefully naive on the effect that people can have on your life, good or bad. And so the writer here says that he surrounds himself with the company of the upright. So he's surrounding himself with upright people, righteous people that are a good influence on his faith. Jumping into our content for this segment, I have a guest in studio. Da-da-da! Drum roll, please. My wife, Lexie, with an E, might I add, because people get it wrong. They spell it L-E-X-I. It's L-E-X-I-E. She's in studio with me now. Lexie, welcome to your first debut of The Core.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on.
Yep, glad to be on.
Now, you and I have done radio before.
Yes,
right? We did
have.
By Design.
That's right.
We hosted a few episodes there, and that was good. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I either talk about my wife or my children, the ratings go up.
The children especially.
Yes, the children especially. I remember 2 years ago, I brought the baby in the studio, and I mean, Facebook Live numbers spiked. Yes. So I guess I'm kind of mediocre, good some days, bad the others, but then bring in children into the equation, and everybody gets excited. So, but I won't be upset about that. That's fine. So Lexie, you and I have an important announcement to make today.
We do.
This is a milestone in our life. So do you want to tell our audience what's coming in the fall?
Well, we're going to have another baby.
We are.
Our
number 5.
Baby number 5.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yay.
Bobby's here for the home run every time we need him. So baby number 5's coming in the fall.
That's right.
And I've been wanting to tell people for 3 years now. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
At least a month I've been wanting to tell people.
Probably longer.
Yeah, because you're in the second trimester, so it's not like you're super early. But we did want to tell family first, and then we told our coworkers, and then I told you last week, hey, I'm going to go on my show and tell people now, and you said, no, we're going to wait until I'm on with you next week.
Yeah, we'll do it together.
Yeah, so we did.
It's more fun that way.
Yeah, so baby number 5, and we will have, in October, Lord willing, we'll have 5, 7, and under, right?
Yes.
With a set of twins. See, I know my numbers here. And that we stair-stepped them, right? And we got a set of twins in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I wanted to talk to you about today, not only the grand announcement, because I know you wanted to be a part of that, didn't want to miss out. And it was hard for me not to tell people on the show last week, but I waited.
Thank you.
Because I've gained in wisdom over the years. Okay. And but you've been a boy mom, and you are a boy mom to the 4 we have now, and we've got one coming in October. We're not sure what it is. We'll let you know. We'll keep you updated. But as far as being a boy mom, what's it like? Because when we went into marriage, you definitely didn't raise your hand and said, "Give me 4 boys."
Yes.
But the Lord has His plans.
That's exactly right.
And we have the 4 boys. So talk about being a boy mom.
Yeah, well, you're right. I thought we would have a mix of both.
Sure.
Okay, and I really did think first would be a boy, because I thought boys are great protectors, so he can grow up and watch over for the others. And so, hoped it would be a girl, but it's a boy. Great. Then had the twins.
Yes.
Okay, and so we're like, we're getting 2. Surely one of them's a girl. Okay, no. All right, so they're both boys, and I'm like, that's okay. We're not finished yet.
Yes.
Yep. And so then we have number 4, and it's a
Isaac.
boy.
Yes.
And they are all, though, such a blessing.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where I can look back and say, I had my plan and idea for what I thought would be great, and God has really challenged me and shown me that it really doesn't matter what I want, because He has a plan that's far greater than what I could expect to have. And He has used these boys to encourage me in my walk and to challenge me, and especially for parenting, He's used them to give me a mindset that it really doesn't matter if you have a girl or a boy.
Yes.
Because the goal is to be an example for them, for the love of Jesus, and to raise them to honor the Lord, to serve Him prayerfully, to come to know them as their Savior at an early age. And that's doesn't matter what gender it is.
Yes.
And so that has been a gift for me, to be able to realize that it's really not about me and what I want. It's about Him and serving Him through parenting and raising our children. But what's it like? Oh, me.
Well, it's a ride. But the point you made, it's a fun ride, and even in our most crazy situations, I'll tell you that I would not take this back under any circumstance.
That's right.
Because there's so much joy in it. But what you said about it not being about like what we want or our preferences, as far as whether you have boys or girls or a mixed bag, whatever, that's so important to emphasize today, because you state that, and people who do think biblically about it and think selfless about parenting should also agree with that, and that's kind of a, of course, statement. But we live in a society where so much is centered on the adults' desires and not the children's needs, that having, all girls or all boys or not the number that you preferenced can cause strife and division, and couples have to work through that. But to your point, it's really not about what we want. It's about stewarding the children that God has given us and raising them in the fear and admonition of the Lord and making disciples.
That's right.
That's what the whole parenting experience is about.
That's right.
But as far as your average day, do you have any? How much you time do you get? How much time to yourself do you get throughout the week?
Okay. Well, only when the children are sleeping.
And even then, you're still on the clock.
Oh,
right?
yes,
If they need you.
and yes. So I usually try to wake up about 5:30 or so, and occasionally, our oldest Luke likes to come in with me.
Yes.
At 5:30
before the sun's up.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's a little challenging. But I do tell him before 6 o'clock, you just have to.
Yeah, just slow
That's
down.
right. That's
yes.
right. Yes,
We're not
So
going to jump on the trampoline.
It's not very often, but I will say you do a great job on the weekends.
Yeah.
Watching the children, and let's be honest, the children enjoy it as well.
They do.
Okay.
They call it Boys' Day.
They have Boys' Day, and they have a great time. But that's what I like to tell people is that, I do a lot during the week taking care of them, but you do a great job.
Yeah.
Weekends are when you get home, taking them outside, playing with them so I can do stuff inside the house and whatnot.
Yeah, and that's important for young couples out there, or even couples our age that have 3, 4, 5 children, whatever, is that the spouses share the load, because that's how God intended it. This is not supposed to be the wife does 80% and the husband does 20 or vice versa. Spouses are supposed to share the load, right, and be a blessing and a gift and serve one another. And kudos to my wife, because I was traveling and she was in the kitchen, and Luke said something to you that was unexpected. Tell everybody what he said.
It was. Well, and two, what made it even more unexpected is because I had a little, I don't know, it was one of those mornings where you're like, I got 10 other things that I'd like to be doing, but
yeah, you were working through some feelings. Right?
I'm here right now. I got to get their breakfast, get them ready for school. Walker's out of town, and I'm just going and going. And Luke says, I've given them their breakfast, and he says, oh, well, can I have some water? And I said, well, sure, Luke. I'll go get you some water.
He can fix his own water.
He's 6, almost 7. He can get up and get his water, but I just usually do.
You do, yeah, you very much take care of him.
And he looked at me and said, Mom, I can tell you love serving us. And I just got tears in my eyes because I thought, I said, Luke, I do love serving y'all.
Because you do. He was speaking truth.
Yes, y'all are. I mean, that's why right now this is my season, is to serve you guys and to show you guys what it's like. And I think about, I remind them all the time to do everything without complaining and grumbling. And, here I was on the inside.
Yes.
A little bit complaining, a little bit grumbly, but I responded to him, well, sure, I'll go get it. And then he told me. So I think that was important for, that the Lord showed me too, is that, you tell them all of these things, how to interact with others, but you need to be mindful while you're showing them, you've got to have that in your heart as well.
Yes.
And so that was a treasure that I will hold dearly to my heart.
That's going to go down in the books.
Yes.
Yeah,
and one day I will remind him of how kind his words were to me.
Yes. And folks, we gotta live it out, live out our faith, live out the things that we teach our children. Otherwise, there's a contradiction there, and it's really actually going to cause harm and confusion with our children if we're not living consistently to the best of our ability. Of course, we're going to make mistakes. There's a time for repentance and apologies.
That's right.
But the vast majority of the time, we need to be living out consistently what we preach and what we teach, because it does show up, right? I mean, they know us by our works, they know us by our deeds. But I wanted this segment to be an encouragement, Lexie, for people out there, people who are thinking about having children or already have them.
Yes.
That this is such a blessing, and our culture tries to convince that it's not a big deal. If you want babies, you can have them, and if you don't, it's fine. But there's so much here in the whole parenting arena, discipleship arena, and impact arena that people are missing out on.
That's right. It's a gift.
Yeah, it is. So, baby number 5 coming in the fall of
October,
2024.
That's right. Walker might have to share his birthday.
Maybe.
So,
Hopefully
we'll
not. But I'll share it with one of my children.
That'll be cool.
Yes.
I think so.
I'm an October 21 child.
Yeah.
1993. So we'll see when this baby comes, boy or girl. We'll find out. We'll pass on the memo. We'll let you know. But my wife is a prized wife and does a great job and is setting a good example for our boys. So thank you, Lexie.
You.
Give me some nooks.
That's all right. Thanks for having me on.
Bobby had your music lined up.
Yes, appreciate that. Yep.
We are in business. We'll be back in the next segment.
For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. Melania Trump pushed for equality for all at a $10,000 a ticket fundraiser for the Republican LGBTQIAP plus group, Log Cabin Republicans, at Mar-a-Lago. The group's sole mission is to normalize the sexual deviancy socio-political agenda within the Republican Party. Mr. and Mrs. Trump seem to be completely on board with this objective. Former U.S. Ambassador Richard Grenell, who co-hosted the event, wrote on X that they'd raised $1.1 million at the event. There's an unapologetic effort afoot to redefine conservatism. Redefined conservatism is not Christianity.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, public policy analyst for the American Family Association.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that is MediShare. And maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save many families up to $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true people are way more satisfied after making the switch too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works too. It's been around for 30 years. Members have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. See what you can save. This is a very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
Preborn celebrates that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. Roe has been responsible for the slaughter of over 63 million babies. Now the decision to abort a child will be left in the hands of the states, and sadly, abortions will continue in the most liberal states. Over the past 16 years, Preborn has positioned their clinics in the top abortion cities where 50% of abortions occur. Preborn's work of saving babies' lives continues at an even greater level as they save babies' lives and defend their centers from the radical hate groups who want to shut them down. Preborn's response is dependent on you, the pro-life community. Be a part of rescuing lives and changing hearts for Christ. $28 sponsors one ultrasound, and $140 will help to rescue 5 babies' lives. Dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby, or go to preborn.com. All gifts are tax deductible.
At the Core podcasts are available at afr.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to The Core here on American Family Radio. If you missed the last segment, I can honestly say you should go back and listen to it. I had my wife Lexie in, and we were announcing that our 5th child is due on this side in October of 2024. So this will be number 5, and we're excited about it. And we talked a little bit about raising our 4 boys and what that's like and what's involved and the blessings that come from it. So check out the podcast if you want to get that last episode. You can go to At the Core Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Click the subscribe button and listen to today's program. Jumping to our next guest out of Louisiana, I want to introduce Louisiana State Representative Mark Wright. He's on with us now, of course, out of the great state of Louisiana. Representative Wright, welcome to the program.
Hey, glad to be here. Really looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for having me and talking about what we're doing in the legislature.
Absolutely. Louisiana State Representative Mark Wright's with us now, talking about some legislation he's been working on and one of the specific bills that we've been working with him on to help patients with life-saving treatment. But before we talk about the Life-Saving Treatment Act, I know it's called something different in Louisiana, talk about some of the other topics and items, Representative Wright, that you've been working on this legislative cycle.
Sure. Well, in case some of the listeners aren't as familiar with what we've been doing, we had 2 special sessions to kick off this term with our new governor. One was a redistricting special session, and one was a crime special session. And those take up a lot of time. There was a lot of focus. The crime one in particular was a goal for the governor, and of course the legislature wanted to be a part of it. But then we just kicked off our normal session in March, and I think it was very clear coming into the session that the number one topic for representatives and senators and our constituents was insurance and the problems that we're seeing, whether it be property or auto and things like that. So we had a lot of bills, a lot of packages, and it's about halfway through the process right now. So the House passed a number of bills. The Senate is working on them now. So hopefully by the end of the session, we'll have a couple of good bills that will try to address that problem. And I think in general, like especially for the south part of the state, the coastal part of the state, property insurance is just huge. It's just, it's with the storms and things like that, it's just a big, big problem. Then we've also been working on a couple of ESA bills, some school choice bills, not unlike Arizona and Virginia and some others in the past. Again, that one, we passed a couple of bills. We're halfway through it, out of the House, and then the Senate's working on it. And then the final big subject for us is the Constitutional Convention. So, ever since I came to the legislature, I've talked to people and even did a few bills myself to kind of look at how Louisiana does its constitution. We had a convention back in the 70s that produced the current one, but our constitution is, like triple the size of others. We have a lot of things that most states consider statutory law that get put into the Constitution. And the reason why it's important to address that is next year, we're expecting a big budget deficit, and there's a lot of things that limit the governor and the legislature's ability to fix that. So we're trying to set us on a course that will make things easier in the future and to address problems.
Yeah, that's a large topic of discussion now, especially in the conservative movement, because of how we've been really clobbered at the ballot box on these constitutional ballot initiatives around the country. So relooking at the Constitution, the state constitution in Louisiana, how those constitutional amendments come to be, that's definitely worthy of looking at, to especially block any way we can block the left from coming in and hijacking the process. That's a very important thing to look at. Representative Wright, I wanted to talk about this Hope for Louisiana Patients Act. We have something similar in Mississippi we've been working on that thankfully passed the legislature, but it has to do with some of these experimental young treatments on patients who have terminal illnesses, or what is prescribed as a terminal illness at the time. So talk about this Hope for Louisiana Patients Act.
Yeah, sure. It's HB 899. We just passed the House, so received nothing but positive feedback, frankly, from legislators. So I'm very hopeful we'll pass the bill and the governor will sign it when we're all said and done. But essentially what it does is it gives patients access to some life-saving treatments that, it's approved by the FDA, but there's a focus in this case on individualized treatments, because that seems to be the state of medicine now, where it's a little more focused on the individual's problem. We have a bill related to Right to Try from 2014 that was passed, but this is just sort of a step beyond. And there's certain facilities in Louisiana that would benefit from being able to help patients with this. And it's all, like I said, FDA approved. So I think it's a real feel-good bill. It's the type of thing that you can, solve somebody's problem or really save their life to a certain extent, depending on the issue. But I'm thrilled to be a part of it, and I really appreciate the opportunity to author the bill.
Yeah, this is, for the vast majority of people listening, they haven't experienced a life-altering, sometimes terminal illness diagnosis that you start. Anybody, of course, I haven't had this or had a close loved one with this, but you read testimonies of people that are desperate to try anything and everything to save or extend their life with some of these diagnoses, and they often hit these hurdles, these hurdles that seem unfathomable, whether it be FDA related or otherwise, where they're just having trouble getting access to some of these young, I'm calling them young treatments, meaning they haven't been around, different medicines or treatments haven't been around for decades or 50 years, for example. So they're not fully FDA approved and endorsed, but they're still out there. They're still on the market. And so this is an opportunity for people to have more access to that. Let me ask you this, Representative Wright. Once again, we're talking to Louisiana State Representative Mark Wright. You mentioned the Right to Try Act in Louisiana, which many states have, if not all. And then this latest iteration is the Hope for Louisiana Patients Act. Was there something about the Right to Try that made it not as good, not as robust as this more recent version? Did it leave out some things maybe that you guys noticed? What made you want to bring this about in addition to the one already on the books called the Right to Try?
Yeah, so my understanding in talking with the people who helped me, bring the bill and put it together, the Right to Try difference is that this one, the difference with the Right to Try is that this one deals with individualized investigational treatment. So I am not an expert on the previous bill, or it wasn't in the legislature back then when it was passed, but my understanding is this takes it a little step further on the individualized basis, where before it didn't. So that's the extent I know of it right now. But I mean, we could definitely find out more answers on that.
Yeah, this is important, and especially for someone who is going to be given access to life-saving treatments as a result of this bill in the state of Louisiana. And what we're working on is trying to get this passed in states around the country. This is a very much pro-life bill that we're working on. Hey, Representative Mark Wright, thanks so much for coming on the program. Remind our audience which part of Louisiana, which district you serve, and how long you've been in the legislature.
Yeah, sure. I'm in my last term, third term. It's my seventh year. It was a special election 2 terms ago. I represent Covington, Louisiana, north of Lake Pontchartrain, District 77. I also serve as a chair of our Republican delegation in the House. So, grateful to have this opportunity to be a part of that in my last term.
Absolutely. Yeah, you could be responsible, play a part in saving somebody's life, and which is an amazing thing to do. Hey, Representative Wright, thanks so much for coming on the program.
You got it. Thank you. Appreciate it. God bless.
Appreciate your work. That's Louisiana State Representative Mark Wright, serving the Covington area, that district there, Covington, Louisiana. And I was telling the representative before we came on, we've got a litany of stations in Louisiana. We're covering, I wouldn't say all of Louisiana. We're probably covering at least 60 to 70% of Louisiana there with some pretty big stations. So we probably have listeners from his district that know the state representative there, Mark Wright. So kudos to him for working with our team on this legislation and others, and other pieces of legislation. But Louisiana has a very solid governor now. Jeff Landry just got elected recently, so Louisiana is on the path to being able to do some pretty revolutionary conservative legislative items. So that's a good news item. And, that's what I like to remind people of is Washington, D.C. and what's going on the state level are really two different animals. And our movement has really been making a lot of headway at the state level. Washington, D.C. is a whole other beast that needs a ton more reform to get back in order. But just think about the gubernatorial races that conservatives have won in the last few years. I mean, you have Sarah Huckabee Sanders in Arkansas. You have Jeff Landry just won in Louisiana, and the list goes on. We have Governor DeSantis in Florida. There's a governor's race going on in North Carolina. So a lot of good victories at the state level, at the statewide office. And that's when you really talk about nuts and bolts of making progress in a good way, not in a leftist regressive way, but when you talk about really making good progress on conservative legislative and policy items, The states is where it's at, to use a kind of a slang term. That the states is where it's at. I mean, this is where you get the most bang for your buck when it comes to investment, resources, time, and actually moving the ball down the field. I'm mixing together a bunch of analogies here or metaphors, but you get the point. State and local is what we encourage people to at least spend 50% of your time on. Doesn't mean we abandon Washington. Doesn't mean we don't care about who's in the White House. That's the furthest thing from the truth. There's a lot of power at play in Washington, D.C., but we can't neglect what's going on at the local level because it's very, very important. And the work you do locally can pay dividends down the road when it comes to actually making progress on the issues that we care about. Hey, one news article I wanted to mention, we got a minute or two left in this segment. This just came out from Breitbart this morning. It's citing a Rasmussen poll. This Rasmussen report surveyed 1,200 individuals, and here's what it came. This survey polled. This Rasmussen report survey polled 1,255 adults between April 21 and April 23, and it found that 71% want Disney to cease their political ideological war that they're waging targeting America's children. Also, in this same Rasmussen report was a record low 46% favorability rating compared to in 2021, Disney had a 77% favorability rating amongst the public in 2021. Fast forward to 2024, according to this Rasmussen report, they had a 46% favorability rating, dropping nearly 30 points, thereabouts, 31 points in 3 to 4 years. And this proves what we've been saying all along, and that is the politicization, the ideological nature of some of these mega corporations like Disney is an ultimate loser when it comes to profitability and long-term sustainability from a consumer and revenue and company health standpoint. Jumping in, for example, in Florida, Disney, they fought against Governor DeSantis against the bill that position has been. We've led some of the largest, most successful boycotts ever. And that's not an overstatement. That's probably an understatement. Boycott Target, 1.7 million signatures. We've boycotted Disney before. We've boycotted Sears back in their heyday. Ford, we've gone after some of the biggest Fortune 100 companies. But our message is always this. We don't want these mega corporations to become AFA donors. We're not trying to extort anybody. We're not trying to get them to be the biggest Republican Party donors. We want companies to get out of the culture war business. We don't need companies weighing in on the life issue. We don't need companies weighing in on the abortion issue. We don't need companies weighing in on this LGBTQ plus garbage. We need companies that just focus on their primary purpose of existence, which is to serve customers with excellence. If you're a hardware store, sell the best hardware in America. If you're a Disney, do the best family-friendly entertainment in the industry. But get out of the culture war business because it is a loser for the company.
When it comes to parenting, there can be a delicate balance between relationship and authority. That's especially true when parents don't understand that parenting has seasons. In the AFA Cultural Institute video, The Seasons of Parenting, expert John Rosemond walks us through those seasons to show how to properly lead our children in the way that honors God and benefits society. Become the parent God wants you to be. Get The Seasons of Parenting with John Rosemond when you visit resources.afa.net.
Thoughts of the child you were carrying keep pouring over in your mind. A deep, unrelenting sadness overshadows your days, and you wonder if you will ever feel whole again. There is hope and healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential, and we will help you find healing. 866-482-LIFE.
Danny, the baby just rolled over for the first time. Oh, what a strong little boy.
That a boy, son. You're on your way.
Oh, who's my strong little man?
Rollovers can be milestones in life, some early on and some later. One rollover you might consider is from your individual retirement account to a charitable gift annuity with the AFA Foundation. If you'd like to increase your retirement income and leave an impactful gift to the work of American Family Association, the charitable gift annuity is a worthwhile option. To learn more, contact the AFA Foundation at 800-326-4543, extension 345, or email foundation@afa.net. If you own an IRA, would like to increase your charitable giving, but need retirement income, the IRA to CGA rollover may be for you. Call the AFA Foundation at 800-326-4543, extension 345.
For your walk with Jesus, I'm David Wolin with Haven Today, inviting you to anchor your day in God's Word. You've seen the news, you've read the headlines. Every week, a whole new set of problems for this world. Wars with no end in sight, governments on the verge of collapse, politicians who can't agree on anything, irreconcilable differences at every level of society, and on top of all that is the news even telling you the whole truth. What a contrast is the Word of God, full of truth, full of hope. Take Psalm 62. It calls us to find rest in God alone. Verses 11 and 12 give us reasons we can trust in Him. It says, "Power belongs to you, God, and with you, Lord, is unfailing love." Unlimited power, unfailing love. Get more encouragement daily with Anchor Devotional. Visit getanchor.com.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Walker Wildmon.
Welcome back to the program. Last segment here on this edition of The Core. Walker Wildmon here with you. The podcast is out there wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go there and subscribe. We also got the video up on Facebook, AFA Stream platform. Those two places is where you can watch the program. Hey, I do want to jump to our next guest here. This is a subject that I spoke extensively about following the disaster that was COVID and the pandemic and everything surrounding it. But hasn't really been at the forefront of our discussion in the last year or so, but glad to bring this back because it is of significance. I want to introduce Lee and Chrissy Hicks. They are a mother and father combo, of course, out of North Carolina. And their daughter, Yulia, is fighting a very serious battle over an organ transplant. And so I want to get their story now here on The Core. Lee and Chrissy, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on.
Well, glad to have you on. I'm glad that we get to tell this story. I'll let you tell this story because this has been the treatment of the unvaccinated has been a travesty in this country. It's been very unjust, unfair, and unrighteous. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we jump into the nuts and bolts and the granular details of your story and the story of your daughter, Yulia, give us, either one of you can take this or you can tag team it. Give us the background to here. Kind of bring us up to today so that we understand context.
Okay. We adopted Yulia she's from Ukraine originally, but we got her actually from another family in America. We were given a 3-hour notice to pick her up from the airport, her and her brother. We knew Yulia had a kidney problem when they gave us the call. We had adopted another girl from the Ukraine named Anastasia, and so we met Vanya and Yulia then. So when they came to us, we knew she already had a kidney problem. I knew she had been seen at Duke, and I knew that eventually she was going to need a transplant. So once we had them, we took them back up to Duke to reestablish care up there. And that's how we ended up at Duke Hospital. They would not, she was at 13% kidney function, and she needed to start dialysis basically immediately, but they would not do it until she had a stable social environment, which makes sense. She can't be in foster care and do dialysis. And by a miracle, they were adopted within 90 days, and we were able to get her port placed in July of 2021, and she started dialysis at home in August of 2021. So basically what happens then is we do the treatment at night, every night, and we go up to, Duke is affiliated with DaVita, and so we would go up there twice a month to get, follow up, make sure dialysis is going well, see the doctors, and we did that for 16 months. They started pushing the vaccine as soon as it was available for teenagers. They wanted us to start to give her the vaccine, and we said, no, we're not comfortable with that. So every couple months, they would try to strong arm us again, like it's time for you to get her the vaccine. And we kept saying, no, when we get to transplant, we'll have a discussion, because we had held out hope that this would all go away and it wouldn't be an issue by the time we got to transplant. And then in November of 22, we finally had our workup at Duke, and I'll let my husband explain what happened then.
So during the whole time she was getting dialysis, Yulia was the model patient, and they kept saying it over and over at DaVita, hey, she's doing great. She's one of our best patients here. She's doing so well. When we went to Duke for that final workup before going to surgery, we met the two doctors, Dr. Chang and who's the infectious disease doctor, and then Dr. Chambers, who was the director of the program. Dr. Chang let us believe that at that point in time that they would do the transplant, the kidney transplant, without the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine. At the time that they'd had patients that did that. They didn't like it, but they did it anyway. And then Dr. Chambers came in and said, no, the same day, she said, no, it's not true. It's going to be, you have to have the vaccine before we'll go to surgery. So we got them on the phone call together just to clarify, because they denied us that day. And then a few weeks later, we asked to get a meeting with them. And we asked them again, point blank, is this a requirement? Is the COVID-19 vaccine a requirement for the kidney? And they said, no, it's not a requirement. But if you don't get it, it's just a recommendation. But if you don't follow the recommendation, you're not going to get the kidney. You have to go somewhere else. And so basically, by terms and definitions, that is a requirement.
Right. They were just playing semantics with us the whole time. And so at that point, we knew that it was futile. We were not going to get a transplant at Duke. And honestly, we have to attribute everything to God. Like everything that has happened to us since then is 100% a miracle. We were in December of 2022. We ended up on a lot of shows. We were on Tucker Carlson. We were on Fox and Friends. And an amazing man. We only know his initials as JJ, who lives in Kentucky. He's like in his 20s. He came forward to donate Yulia a kidney, and we Carolina University Health Care. They said, no, it's not a problem. Come here. We'll do it without the vaccine. And it was a miracle. Yulia's kidney was placed, and it was making urine immediately. She was out of the hospital in 3 days, which is a miracle. Usually a transplant patient with no complications, it's 3 weeks. She was out in 3 days, and she's been doing well. So now our fight has changed a bit. Now we're trying to pass Yulia's law in North Carolina. Like you said, things are better if you push it at the state level or local level. And we're trying to pass Yulia's law. It passed the House in North Carolina last May with 91 to 24 votes. So it was all of the Republicans and half the Democrats voted yes. However, we've found in the last year that politics are alive and well in every state, and the Senate is holding it up in the Rules Committee.
Right.
And we don't know the reason for it, but, there's a lot of powerful players. Someone, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours is basically where we're at to try to get this bill passed. But we are working with a national organization called American Constitutional Rights Union, ACRU, and they have a website. It's called acruaction.com, where anybody in North Carolina can go and write their senator and beg for this bill to be released, because it will pass, and it will have 2/3 veto. It will become law. It'll be the first law in America that protects people from being denied transplant based on their COVID vaccination status. And we get calls and emails all the time of people still being denied.
Yeah, this is one of the one of the largest injustices that I've seen outside of the issue of abortion that I've seen in a long time in this fight for individual rights and liberty and justice. This is a travesty, because we're talking about an experimental shot that's not doesn't function truly as a vaccine. It's a shot, and it statistically doesn't work, pretty much.
Right.
And you some people could say, well, it works sometimes, but no, it doesn't work as they intended it, as they told us it would work. And it's actually proving very harmful for a lot of people out there, which is really a whole nother subject that is worthy of investigation, both civil and criminal, and by Congress and state AGs on the rollout of these vaccines that don't work and that are harming people. But as far as your daughter, Yulia, as you guys explained, she ended up getting a transplant from a donor through another medical system. Is that what I heard?
Correct. From East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina.
Yes. So the fight now is to make sure that other parents and other families don't have to go what you guys and Yulia went through, the trauma, the headache, the mixed signals on it's required, it's not required, which is a bunch of attorney jargon, I can tell you. It's a bunch of attorney lingo. It's not a requirement, but you're not going to get the transplant unless you do this. So it is a requirement. That's lawyer speak 101, so that they don't get sued. So tell me the name of this committee that this is stuck in, and the bill number, if you have it in front of you, what this bill number is.
Yes, I do. So it's stuck in the Rules Committee. The chair of the Rules Committee is Bill Rabone, R-A-B-O-N, Rabone. And it is Senate Bill 644. And it was House Bill 586. But it's both named Yulia's Law. And like I said, anybody in North Carolina, if they want to go to acruaction.com and look up their senator and send emails, I think that's the best thing we can do. If people know that their constituents want this done, they're more likely to move it forward.
Right.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah. Yeah. 1 second, Lee. This is good. I'm looking at it now. acruaction.com. acruaction.com. And the story of Chrissy and Lee and Yulia, their daughter, is actually on here. There's a video of their story, and it explains everything we're talking about. But Lee, we've got about 5 minutes left. Lee, what were you going to say?
So I'll just say he's the district number 8 senator. So it's Columbus, New Hanover, and Brunswick
So people
counties.
in those counties, it's most important to email that chair and let them know. And like a lot of people ask us, why are you still fighting? Your daughter got what she needed. Like, move on with your life. You have 10 other kids. And yes, life is crazy, let me tell you, with 11 kids. But we're both veterans, and we don't just do things for ourselves. We've been trained to support and defend the Constitution, to fight for people who can't fight for themselves, and we're very passionate about this.
Absolutely. And being from combat, being deployed multiple times, you see this type of environment, and it's just not America. This is not America. This shouldn't be. Medical communities should not be able to determine a person's life or death over a vaccine.
Yeah, and to your point, Lee, to your point, Chrissy, this is about what you guys are doing is not about you and your daughter. Your daughter, thank the Lord, has an organ now, has a kidney, and has had the transplant and is on the mend, is in the recovery. But the thing that's missing in our country that thankfully you guys are bringing back and others is this is not about our fight for the right thing in this country and in North Carolina and other states is not about you and I and those fighting receiving immediate gratification, immediate answers, immediate response, and getting our situation fixed and then leaving it to somebody else or some other kid to fight for their own life. That's not what Scripture calls us to. Scripture calls us to selflessness, calls us to fight for others, especially fight for others who can't fight for themselves. Like your daughter. I mean, I can't imagine the kind of trauma that Duke and others put her through by leaving you guys in limbo for who knows how long on this kidney transplant. So you guys are fighting. This is, just to give our listeners a little more detail, this is this legislation that Chrissy and Lee and others are fighting for just in North Carolina, and we'll hopefully replicate this if it hasn't already been done in other states as well to prevent discrimination. But Senate Bill 644, that's the number. That's where it is now. It's stuck over in the Senate in the Rules Committee. Senate Bill 644 in North Carolina. As Chrissy and Lee have stated, this thing can pass. This thing can get to the finish line. It can be signed by the governor, but it's got to get out of this committee. It's already passed one chamber with an overwhelming majority, so it's got to get out of committee. What's the timeline here, Lee and Chrissy, as far as when the session is up?
July, the first week in July is when the session's up. So it needs to be, everybody needs to make this a priority and call, especially Senator Wildmon, and make sure he moves the bill on.
Yeah. So it's been, it was passed in the House a year ago. So if it doesn't pass this session, it dies, and we have to start over again, which we will. We're not going away.
No.
We're going to keep fighting.
Yep.
And we are working with the ACR, which is a national organization. I know that there's a bill right now being written in South Carolina that will do similar things, but our plan is to keep moving forward. We're not done. Whether we pass in North Carolina or not, we will move on to more states. It has to be done, and we're very passionate about it.
Absolutely.
There are still people being denied kidneys today because of vaccine status.
Oh yeah, 100%. People are being denied. Probably, I wouldn't say daily, but at least weekly, people are being denied some of these procedures or transplants due to their vaccination status, which is astonishing and unjust. And people shouldn't have to go through this. They shouldn't have to submit themselves to these unsafe shots in order to get a transplant. So we appreciate y'all's work on this. We're going to continue highlighting it. We'll follow this. We'll track this thing to the finish line. Once again, we've been talking to Lee and Chrissy Hicks and their story about their daughter, Yulia, and her fight over a transplant, an organ transplant in North Carolina, and getting a law passed so that others can't be discriminated against based on vaccination status. Lee and Chrissy, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate that. That's Lee and Chrissy Hicks out of North Carolina, parents there that adopted Yulia and fought for her to get her kidney transplant, and experienced hurdles because Duke Medical Facility turned Yulia down for the transplant, or made getting the vaccination contingent upon her getting the transplant, which is a shame. And this whole vaccination scandal, which is what it is, this could eat up the political realm for months or years. The investigations, plural, that need to take place over this entire COVID vax, which I'm going to call it COVID shot, so we're being accurate. This entire COVID shot scandal, where we rush these things through, the companies that produce them have nearly zero liability. They have all kinds of liability protections. And it's been documented, people have been harmed. And there's nobody to answer. The government's not responsible, they say. The companies aren't responsible, they say. It's just all left up to the people that are harmed to figure this thing out. It's a travesty that should be investigated to the fullest extent.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
You only want to donate to biblically sound organizations. So as a federal or state employee, why not choose the American Family Association Combined Federal Campaign Designation 12037? Of the organizations on the CFC list, AFA is one of the few standing for you and your family. By choosing 12037, you help make it possible for us to continue.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry.